Hello, I'm Vanessa Rogers, Clinical Director at Team Symplify. This video will give you a full demonstration and training on how to use Symplify. It covers all of Symplify's features from start to finish. We've broken down the training into sections, so you can either watch the whole thing or just the bits you need. Symplify is an online toolkit for supporting speech, language and communication. It was developed by specialist speech and language therapist, me, and a creative web developer, David Woolard. We launched Symplify about a year ago in March 2019, so we're still quite new. It aims to streamline your target selection, your resource preparation, and your therapy sessions or lessons. It's all about more fun and less faff. It has a set of powerful linguistic search tools with a vocabulary of over 24,000 words and corresponding widget symbols. It also has a suite of engaging games and activities based on evidence-based speech and language techniques. It's designed for use on 2 devices, one for you and one for your client. Symplify runs in a web browser, which means there's no app to download, and it will work on any modern device with an internet connection. You can sign in on any device, including tablets, smartphones, and interactive whiteboards. For iOS devices, Symplify requires at least iOS 11. Although we're based in the UK, you can access Symplify anywhere in the world. To get started, go to symplify.co.uk. Scroll down to the bottom of the page and create an account to start your 30-day free trial. Everything except printing and PDF generation is available in the free trial. If you wish to use printing straight away, you can start your subscription anytime. Thereafter, Symplify is $5.99 a month or £60 a year. If you're overseas, PayPal will automatically calculate the exchange rate for you. We offer large discounts for teams. Just email us on hello@symplify.co.uk for a quote. This is Symplify. When you sign up for your free trial or you create a subscription and you sign into Symplify, this is what you'll see. This is your dashboard. So Symplify is all about lists and games. So we're going to start this training session with focusing on lists, and then later we'll move on to the games. So for every session that you do with Symplify, you start with a list. So we're going to go into our list manager. Now here you can see all the lists that I've already saved, and this is where you go to create a new list. So there are 2 types of lists in Symplify, regular lists and contrast lists. And there are 2 ways that you can create contrast lists. A regular list is just a list of single words and their corresponding symbols. A contrast list is for minimal contrast therapies, so minimal pairs, multiple oppositions, maximal oppositions, empty set, and so on. So we're going to start with a regular list. So we select regular list here, and you give your list a name. Now, we recommend that you use clients' initials or something that's very easy to search for your list names. I'll show you in a moment in the list manager why that is. So if you've seen any of our other training videos, if you saw the Zoom teletherapy video that we did, you'll already know about my very special client, Snowy. I'll show you Snowy in just a minute. So his full name is Snowy Dog, so we're going to use his initials SD, and we're going to create a list of words for Snowy. So we're going to just call it SD vocabulary and create our list. Now this is the regular list builder. So the most sort of straightforward tool in the list builder is the search box up here. So if you know that you just want a small number of symbols, you can just search for the words you want and the symbols will come up. When you get a few choices of symbols like this, you just click on the one that you want and it puts it over here into your list. So we could do a few more like that. There you go. Now, this is where things get a bit more interesting. Each of these coloured tabs along here is a different linguistic search tool. So I'm going to show you how each of these works and how you can use them to really hone down and find the exact vocabulary you need for every client. So we'll start with semantics. So you'll see that this is a vast list of a few hundred semantic categories and subcategories. Now don't worry, you don't need to scroll through them every single time. There's a little search box here at the top. So for instance, we could put food, and then it shows you all the different food categories and subcategories. So we could just select foods and it will give us all of the food in the database. There you go. And if we kept clicking show more results, there would be lots and lots of food on there. Or you might want to go for a more specific food subcategory. So we might want to go for, let's go for some cheeses. There you go. So that then gives you all of the cheese symbols. The next one is attributes. So this allows you to search for words based on their attributes. So we could look for round things, or things that smell. The cowpat symbol there is always a favourite with most of the children I work with. So moving on to the next one, we've got grammar. And again, there's a big list of lots of different grammar categories. This tool also features a whole lot of different suffixes and prefixes. There's also a few other things in here that sort of didn't fit anywhere else. So this is where they are, that aren't strictly grammar, but this is where you'll find them. So slang, for instance, is there. So let's take a look at that. So it gives you lots of lovely slang terms. You'll also find homophones and homonyms in there. So if we select homonyms, there you go. So the next one is the phoneme tool. And you'll see here at the top, you've got all of your consonants. And if you scroll down, you've got the vowels. You can search for single consonants in any word position if you like, or you can specify the word position here. So that's going to give us anything with a S in it phonetically. You could also search for a cluster. So we could look for FL initial. And it will give you all the FL initial words. Or we can select one of those vowel sounds. Let's go for final or. And there you go. The rhyme tool allows you to search for any word and it will give you all of the words that rhyme with it. The consonant vowel structure tool allows you to enter any consonant vowel structure you like. It will give you the relevant words. And finally, the syllable count tool allows you to search for any particular number of syllables. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You can combine as many of these filters as you like. So, if we imagine that Snowy, my client, is working on word initial T. So we might start with that. So I've used the phoneme tool to select a T and word initial position. And then you see that that's bringing up all of the initial words in the database. Now there are lots. See, we're only up to TAI, and if I kept clicking show more results, it would go on and on and on. So we want to filter that down a bit more so that it's going to be quicker for us to find the most useful words. So if Snowy's just got started with T initial, we might want to use a consonant vowel structure filter alongside the T initial filter. So let's just start with CV. And then that's going to give us all the T initial CV words. So we can then start to say, okay, let's just pick from those the most useful ones for Snowy. And there we go, we've added them into our list. Now, once Snowy's made a bit of progress, we might want to move on to a different consonant vowel structure. So we might go CVC and pick from those. Or we might want to combine it with a different filter. So we could perhaps choose a semantic category that Snowy is interested in. So we've got our T initial still applied. We can then go into semantics, and let's say Snowy's really into animals. Snowy is an animal after all. We can apply that, and then that gives you all of the T initial animals. So you can see how you can really start to combine the filters to find the exact right vocabulary for every client. I'll give you a few more examples of some combined categories. So let's go for a grammar category. Let's go for irregular plurals. Now you can see that there's quite a range of irregular plurals. Some of them will be more advanced vocabulary than others, such as automata and bushman. But they're all there. Keep going through. You've got children, deer, dice, feet, etc. So again, we might want to narrow that down, and we could maybe say, again, let's use our animals filter from the semantic category to get just the animals that have an irregular past tense. Sorry, irregular plural. So again, you can just pick from those and add them into your list. And away you go. Now you might want to, if you were working on multisyllabic words, you might want to start with, let's say, 3 syllables. Again, we've got masses of results, so you could then use, again, a semantic category that the child is interested in. So let's say they're really into cooking. You could go for foods, and then you could pick from there lots of nice 3-syllable foods. Similarly, you could do it with transport vocabulary. Let's go for transport, all vehicles. If you want to, you can specify different types of vehicles like air, land, snow, water, etc. But we'll go for all vehicles so we get plenty of results. And there you go, lots of 3-syllable vehicles. So once you've used your filters and selected the words that you want, you just save your list over here, and then you've got some options here to either print your list or play a game with your list. I'll show you both of those features in a moment once we've gone through the contrast list creators. So we're going to go back to our dashboard, back to our list manager, and create a contrast list. So the first contrast list I'm going to show you is using error patterns. So this is for children with a phonological delay, where they're using typical speech error patterns, phonological processes. So let's go for snowy dog, gliding, minimal pairs. So we're going to select contrast list error patterns and create our list. This then gives you a drop-down list with all of the different phonological processes. So for snowy, we're going to select gliding. They're all there. And if you carry on down to the bottom, you'll see a whole selection of languages. This is for people who are using Symplify for teaching English as a foreign language or for accent modification. Each of these will give you the relevant minimal pairs, which are typically challenging for learners of English who speak each of these languages. So for this list, we were going to use gliding. So let's assume that snowy is doing wa for la. So we'll select that one. Now because I've clicked over here, that's going to give me la versus wa in all word positions. If I wanted to specify the word position, I would just click which one I want on here, but we'll go for all positions so we get plenty of results. And there you go, that gives you all the minimal pairs in the database for la versus wa. So I'm going to select a few of these to add to my list. So we're going to start with lock versus walk. Now if there are multiple options for the symbols for one or both of your words, they come up here and you just click on the one that you want and then go add contrast, and it adds it over here to your list, just like before in the regular list builder. So your list is always built up over here in the sidebar. If you're on a smaller screen, for instance, if you're doing this on a smartphone, this green section where your list builds up will be at the top of the screen and it collapses down just to give you a bit more space. But on larger screens, it's always over here in the sidebar. So we'll choose a few more. Let's have leak and weak. And lizard and wizard. One of my favourite minimal pairs. Okay, so we're going to save that as our list. And again, you've got your options here for printing and playing. So that is a contrast list using error patterns. So now I'm going to go back to our dashboard and show you how you make a contrast list using phonemes. So this is for your clients who are using atypical speech patterns, so those with a phonological disorder, for instance, children who are using vowel errors, or if you want to do multiple oppositions therapy, or maximal oppositions, essentially anything where you don't want to use just a typical error pattern based minimal contrast. So we'll call this one Snowy Dog. We'll do a multiple oppositions one for Snowy, so we're going to do B versus F versus FL, and then we'll select the third option here, so contrast list phonemes, and create our list. So when you go into the phoneme contrast list builder, you get these 5 grey boxes along the top. So you can populate each of these boxes with any phoneme or cluster. So we'll start with the first one, and we're going to add B, then F, then FL. And that then gives us sets of 3. And just like before, we can just select whichever ones we want to add to our list. So let's have bore, for, and floor. We might go for bat, fat, and flat. And let's choose one more. Let's have ban, fan, scrummy flan. Okay, so again, we've added our minimal contrasts to our list over here. We can save our list, and then we're ready to print or play. I'll just show you a few more things on here. So we could keep going and add up to 5 sounds or clusters. Let's have there you go. So obviously the more you add, you're likely to get less results, but that's minimal contrasts. You can also do vowels, so we can just clear those off. Click on the first one again, and again scroll down to our vowels, so we could get a nice vowel contrast. Let's go for O versus ow. And again, it gives you all the minimal pairs for those sounds. So we're going to move on now to look at Symplify's games. Now for this part of the training, I've split the screen in 2. So I want you to imagine that the screen on the left, the smaller screen, is your device, the therapist's device or the teacher's device, and the screen on the right is your client's device. So for all of Symplify's games, they work best in 2-device mode. You can do them on a single device, so if you're not in a situation where you've got 2 devices handy, there is a way around it, but they work much, much better, and you get a much better experience if you can do them on the 2 devices. So I'm going to start on our therapist device over here. So I'm going to scroll down to Start a Therapy Game. So Symplify has 3 games at the moment. We've got a few more coming soon as well, and a few updates coming to the existing games as well, so do keep an eye out for those. For now we have our card game, Auditory Discrimination, and Categories. So we'll start with a card game. So we click Create Session, and then first of all we need to choose our list. So this is where what I was saying before about using your client's initials comes in really handy. So whenever you're searching the list manager, either in this part where you're creating a game or just in your dashboard if you're looking through your lists there, you can put in the search box here your client's initials. So let's go for Snowy Dog, and there we go. So this has then given us all the lists that we've created for Snowy Dog. So I'm going to start with our vocabulary list, which was the one we did in the regular list builder, so that was our T initial words. So when you create a card game, you've got an option here to add boxes. So in a card game you can have up to 6 boxes, and you can use them for anything you like. So they are just zones on the screen that you can organise your cards into. And for each box you can add text and you can add a symbol. So a nice example of how you might use boxes is if you're doing a two-player game and you want a box for yourself and a box for your client, so that if you're playing a game where you win cards, you can store them away in each box. You also might want to use boxes for categories, or for things like if you're doing a bingo game, you might want just one box in the middle for your bingo cards to be pulled out of. So the options are endless, really. And in a moment, I'll show you some examples of different ways that you might use boxes in the card game. So we'll start with just a box for each player. So we'll have one for me, and I'm going to pick, I'm going to go for my favourite food. Let's go for some chocolate. And then I'll create a box for Snowy as well. And Snowy's favourite food is biscuits, of course. So we'll save that. So that's then created two boxes with the text and the symbols, as you can see there. You can then choose a background colour for your card game. So if you're wanting to use colour coding on your cards, so for things like colourful semantics or other kind of colour-based therapy approaches, or if you just want to put some colour on your cards just to make it interesting, we recommend using the white background, particularly if you're using various colours, because obviously it then shows up best on those. But otherwise, go wild, choose whichever colour you like. You might want to get your client involved at this point and let them choose the colour. So we always recommend that people use this option. So I want to control a session from this device, the client uses the other device. So you always want to set up your game on your therapist device, because the other device will be used to play the game. So we'll click continue on there. So it's now waiting for our second device to connect. So I'm going to go over here onto my client's device. So in a face-to-face therapy session, usually for me this would be my iPad, and then I would be doing this bit, the therapist device I would be doing on my phone. So you don't need two laptops or anything, you can do it with your phone or whatever you've got. So if we go onto the client's device over here, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and then click here on to device mode. That then opens up another tab, and there is our game board ready to go. So we've got our boxes there that we've created and our white background that we selected. So I'm going back onto my device now and I'm going to click start session. So down here you can see the list that we made. So actually it was a mixture, wasn't it? We did some initial CV words, we had our few words that we selected at the start, and we've got some irregular plural animals. So we've got a nice old mixture there. It also adds the symbols that we used for our boxes to our list in case we want to use those again. So we can basically select any words we like from here and send them over as cards, and they will automatically send onto your client's device. You can drag them to spread them out, and you can click on them to turn them over. So if you wanted to do just a very simple matching pairs game, you could just send those same 4 words again, send them over, spread them all out, turn them over, and there's your matching pairs game ready to go. And then once a pair has been found, I've got terrible memory, I don't know where I've put them all, there we go. You can drag them into the boxes and they'll automatically shrink down. So the boxes can be really useful if you're doing something where you've got quite a lot of cards on the screen at the same time and you want to just store some of them out the way a little bit. It shrinks them down and just gives you a lot more space. Obviously I'm cheating at my matching pairs game here because I'm not turning them back over when I've finished, but that's up to me. There you go. So that's the very sort of simple way of using the card game, but there's lots of other things that you can do. So if you want to, you can, as I said, add coloured borders. So let's select our cat and dog, and then here you've got lots of different colours that you can scroll through. So we'll add an orange border to those and send them over, and there they are with their borders. So for a colourful semantics activity, you could have cat and dog, and then you could have some action words. You know, you'd have to prepare those in your list beforehand and select those and make them yellow, and so on. However, you can actually search the whole symbol database in here. So even if you've got a word that isn't in your original list, but that you decide in the middle of the game that you want to send over, you can just search in here. So we could have eating, and we're going to want that to be yellow. Send that over, and there you go. And then that is actually added as well to the bottom of our little list here. So that won't be added to the list that you've saved. Your saved list will stay as it was, but within the game, it's automatically added there so that if you want to send that card again, it's just there ready to grab. You've also got some options here for whether you want to send just the image, or just the text. Okay. There's a tool here for sending any text, so even if it's words that aren't in the database, or if you want to send a lot of text all at once, you can type straight into here. So if you click send words, it then brings up a text box that you can type into. So if we were using our initial words and we wanted to use a little carrier sentence for moving on to sentence level production, we could type in I can see, and as long as the words are separated by spaces, it will create those as individual cards. Now I've still got yellow selected, so these will have a yellow border. So you could put at the top here, I can see tea, or whatever you want to do. Now, our screen is getting quite messy. We've got seemingly two different activities going on at the same time, and we've got quite a lot of cards. Also, I've sent that I can see, and maybe I didn't want the yellow border, so I could just get rid of them up here. So we're going to tidy up the screen a little bit, get rid of some cards, and then carry on. So up here, you've got all of the symbols that are currently active on your client's screen. So even if you can't see your client's screen, you can see on your device all of the cards that are currently showing on their screen. So we could get rid of that I can see, and we can go back to white so we don't have a coloured border, or change it to a different one and just send them over again. So it's really flexible. You can be really dynamic with it and change things very rapidly if you need to. There you go. I can see T. So we'll get rid of our colourful semantics ones as well. There you go. So you could then put all of the cards. In fact, we could get rid of the pair ones and just have one of each word. There we go. Turn them all over, drag them out, pop them in a pile, and then the child could just drag them up from the pile, have a go at their sentence, and then pop it in their box when they're finished. So really the card game just emulates what you would do in real life with physical cards, but just brings it onto the screen. So it saves you hopefully a lot of printing and cutting and laminating. And also it allows you to be a little bit more dynamic. So if the child, for instance, came up with another word that begins with "t" that they wanted to have a go with, but that in a real life or a physical card session, you wouldn't have a picture for that word that the child has just randomly come up with. But on here, you've got your symbol search box here. So if the child said, I don't know, turtle, you can go straight in there and create a turtle card. Oh, that's given it to us as a text card because I've got text selected there. So I'm just going to grab my turtle again, change it back to both, send that again, and then I'm going to ditch the text one. And there you go, there's your turtle card. So you can be really dynamic and responsive to your clients. So here are a few examples of the card game in action. This one was for a Lego therapy session. So you can see that we've set up a box for each of the different concepts. So we've got one for numbers, colours, size words and shape words. And then we've set up a sentence down here. So the idea is that the client or you could pull out the cards that you need for each concept to build up the sentence. The next one was a rhyming words bingo game. So we've got over here, we've laid out some cards that rhyme with dog, and over here some cards that rhyme with cat. And then we've put a duplicate of all of those cards in the bingo box in the middle. And then the idea is that you can pull out the cards one by one, turn them over and match them up, and whoever gets their cards matched up first is the winner. The next one is a colourful semantics activity. So we've set up our subjects, our verbs and our objects with a few function words in between. This was one we did for an S-blend activity. So you could have a whole stack of minimal pairs of your S-blends versus their reduced version over here, and work through them. This one was for a narrative activity. So we've set up a box for where, how, what, and with who. And then the child could pick from each one the ones that they want to build up their story or to tell their holiday news or whatever you want to use it for. Again, this one is really good to do with the option to send words during the session. So if the child is telling you their news or making up a story, you can use that little search box to find any words that they think of. So you can be really dynamic and responsive and really involve the child's ideas and opinions as you go along. Now I'm going to show you the auditory discrimination game. So we're back on our two devices, our therapist device and our client's device. So on the therapist device, we're going to scroll down again to Therapy Games and select Auditory Discrimination. Now this will give you just the contrast lists that you've already saved, because obviously for an auditory discrimination activity, you need a contrast list. So again, let's have a look for our SD lists that we made earlier, and let's use our buffer list. So you get a few options on here. In this game, you have a monster for each of the words in your minimal contrast set. And the monster shows you the word that it wants to eat. So this display option, you can choose whether you want the monster to just have the image, the symbol, or the image and the text. You've also got an option here to put it into assessment mode. In that mode, the monsters will eat anything you give them, so the child doesn't get any feedback. So that's quite useful if you're wanting to assess their auditory discrimination. But I'll show you in regular mode. So we press continue. And again, we then need to put our client's device into two device mode. Now, if we were already playing a game and we switched over to the new game on the therapist device, this would automatically just change on the client's device over here. So here is our auditory discrimination game. So you can see that it's already populated our monsters with ball, fall and floor, which is one of the sets from the list we made earlier. So up here at the top, you've got an option to change the minimal contrast that the monsters are displaying. So we might change it to ban, fan and flan. There you go. And then down here at the bottom, you've got the symbols that are relevant to the current minimal contrast that are displaying on the monsters. So we might send over ban first. Now, on your client's device, the card is face down. They can't see what it is. On your device, up here, you've got active symbols, and you can see that that card is ban. So you know what it is, but they don't. So this is where the two device mode really comes into its own, because it gives you that almost like a barrier game feel. And you've really got control over what's happening. So if you've sent over the ban card, you then say ban, and the child has a go at feeding it to the right monster. If it gets the right one, the monster will munch it down. They're quite messy eaters. So you can keep going, keep sending cards over. And telling the child which one you've sent. So here's flan. And if the child tries to get to the wrong monster, they just ignore you, they don't want to know. There we go, he's happy with that one. So if we were in assessment mode, the monsters would just happily munch away on all the symbols. So you would just want to keep a record of the child's success. You can send more than one over if you want to, so you could go maybe ban, fan, fan. And then again, you can see here what you've sent, but the child has them face down. So if you wanted to use this for, say, a sort of auditory memory activity, or you just wanted to test their auditory discrimination a little bit more with something a bit more challenging and more than one word, that's a really useful way of doing that. If you realise that you've sent one and you've sent the wrong one, you can just clear them off on here, just like before. And then again, when we're ready, we can change to a different minimal contrast in our list. Again, the monsters will do a little jig and change. So our final game is categories. So the category game works in a very similar way to the auditory discrimination game, in that each monster has this time a category on its tummy, and that the symbol that's displayed on the tummy shows your client what they want to eat. And you can create any categories you like for the monsters using our linguistic filters. So we'll create a category session. I'm going to search for a category list that I've made before. I'm going to go for this one, food, transport and animals. And here we go. So we've selected our list. We now need to create our categories. So we need to tell our monsters what we want them to eat. So our first category is going to be food. So we put the text in here that we want the monster to display, and then we can search for a symbol using this box. Then we choose our category filter. So this then brings up all of those linguistic search filters that we had when we made our regular list. So for food, we're going to want to use a semantic filter. So this is going to be a semantic categories game. So we're going to search for foods in there. And we've got a whole selection of different foods in this list, so I'm just going to use the general foods category rather than a subcategory. And then we've got animals. And again, I want the animals symbol as well. Okay, for that one. And again, it's a semantic category, and there it is. So then we've allocated our text, our symbol, and our category. And finally, what did we have? Transport. Transport in there. Let's have a look for the vehicles symbol. Yeah, we'll go for that one. And we're going to go for transport, all vehicles. So we've now told our monsters what we want them to eat. Again, we've got the options here for whether we want just the image on the monsters or the image and the text, and also assessment mode if we want the monsters to eat any old thing we give them. So again, I'm going to put this client device into 2-device mode. And there we go, we've got our 3 monsters, 1 for each category. And then down here is my list that I previously made with a selection of animals, transport and food. And again, we've got our symbol search box here, so we can add other words in if we want to. So you can select as many as you like. So I'm going to mix them up a little bit. The order that you click on them is the order that they'll send. So you probably don't want to click on a load of animals first and then food, because it makes it a bit too easy. So we'll mix it up. Just select those few. Again, you've got the option here if you just want them to display the image or the image and the text. And you can add a coloured border if you want to. So let's give those a red border, why not? Send them over. And then it will stack them all up here, and your client can then sort them out. So sort those out. Now, once you've worked through your list, so you've done your categorising, you might then want your client to do some vocabulary generation, coming up with their own ideas. So this is where your symbol search box really comes in. So you might say to the child, right, can you think of another food? And if they say pizza, you might think, oh, I haven't got pizza on my list. Doesn't matter, you can just pop it in here. Oops. And there's your pizza, and you can send it over. So again, you can be really dynamic and responsive to your client with this game. Again, just like before, you've got, it shows you the categories that your monsters are displaying, and you've got this area here for your active symbols. So if you sent some symbols over and then thought, oh no, I didn't mean to send that last one, you can just take it off there and it'll clear it off for you. So just like before, you've got that option. So what I'll do now is create another categories game, but this time with some phonological categories. So I think often people think of the categories game as being for semantic categories, but really it's for any kind of sorting, of any sort of linguistic category or group you want to use. So I'll go back on our therapist device to my dashboard. Now I'll leave the game running on the client's device so you can see what happens if you switch from one game to another. So what you could do at this point, if you wanted to switch games mid-session, I could have sent a whole load of symbols over and left the child to sort them out while I then set up the new game over here on my device. So if I go back into therapy games and I select categories again, so this time I want one of my phonological lists. So I'm going to go for, let's go for this phoneme collapse list. So f, f, s, and sh. So I'm going to create some categories for that. So we'll start with f. So what I'll do is I'll use symbols based on some of the concepts that are commonly used to represent different phonemes. So we'll go for the fish for f. So then when that brings up our linguistic filters, we want the phonemes one this time, and we're going to go for f initial. So we're going to have the, and we'll go for a little van. Again, we'll go for our phonemes. So you can see how you could use any of these. So you could have monsters for different consonant vowel structures, or monsters for different numbers of syllables, or words that rhyme with different things. So the choices again are really endless with this. So this was our the initial. And then we've got s, so that's got to be the snake. S initial for that one. And then finally sh. And I think there's a nice quiet symbol that we can use for that. Yeah, that one's good. And then again, back into phonemes. And then we want our sh initial. And there you go. So we've created our phoneme monsters. And I'll show it to you in assessment mode just so you can see how that works. Now that will automatically switch over. There you go. Now, because we've got 4 monsters, they've gone a little bit smaller to fit in. Because I'm doing the split screen here, that also makes it a bit smaller. So if I were to hide this screen out of the way, they would zoom up a little bit on a bigger screen. So just like before, we've got our symbols down here. Send them over and the child can sort them out. So this time, because we're in assessment mode, they will merrily, no, he's going to eat them all, no bother. So if you wanted to use it this way for an assessment, you would just need to monitor what the child's doing and take a note as they're playing. So that's just another example of how you could use the categories game for sound sorting activity. Last thing I'm going to show you is printing. So to print one of your lists, you just go into your list manager, find the list you want. So we're going to use our snowy dog search again, and we'll go for, let's go for our gliding cards that we made. So you just click on the list you want. There's a few other options here. You can, if you want to, you can go in and edit your list. You can rename it. You could go straight into play a game from here as well. But we're going to have a look now at printing. So we'll press print. It's very straightforward. There's just 3 layout options. So you choose the layout option that you want. And then you've got an option here for whether you want to show the text on the symbols or not. And then you click View Printable PDF, and it creates a PDF for you that you can print off, or print to PDF if you want to save it and perhaps email it to the family. There's a few ways that you can keep in touch with us. I highly recommend joining our Facebook group Simplify Ideas if you're on Facebook. This is where we share any new news or information, and also anything that I'm using Simplify with in clinical sessions. I take screenshots and share them on there, and some of our other users really kindly share what they're up to with it as well, which is really great to see. So please do join and get involved and let us know how you're getting on with Simplify. We're on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, all at Simplify app. Our YouTube channel, if you just search for Team Simplify, you'll find us on there. And you can email me on vanessa@simplify.co.uk. So that concludes our Simplify training. I hope that was all clear and made sense. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm very happy to arrange a Zoom session if you want to go over anything in more detail. That's absolutely fine. And as promised, it's Snowy Dog.